Well, Lindsey Graham has hit rock bottom. Rock bottom is the sad term that AA uses for the spot where people who drink too much have to find themselves before they can help themselves or be helped. But there is no cure for what has sunk Lindsey Graham to his own very dangerous rock bottom. Rock bottom is dangerous for people addicted to drugs and alcohol, so dangerous that that's where some of them die. But in Lindsey Graham's rock bottom, he is threatening the deaths of others. Senator Lindsey Graham did what no senator in our lifetimes has done. Senator Lindsey Graham said something this weekend that you've never heard another United States senator say. Lindsey Graham said something that no other senator has ever said in the history of the United States Senate. Lindsey Graham actually said, if you prosecute a friend of mine, there'll be riots in the streets. Those were his words, there'll be riots in the streets. After the TV interview that he was in wandered into other subjects, Lindsey Graham wanted to make sure we heard him correctly. So he came back to it. And he said, quote, there literally will be riots in the street. No senator in history has ever predicted or threatened riots in the streets if a friend of that senator was prosecuted. The so-called friend in this case is Donald Trump, who is an actual friend to no one, as Lindsey Graham so tragically knows. No senator in history has ever said, if the most popular member of my party is prosecuted, there will be riots in the streets. Lindsey Graham is what Winston Churchill would call a quisling. It's one of those words you don't need defined the first time you hear it because it's a perfect word. It's a word that sounds exactly like what it means. The first time I heard that word as a kid, it was in an Irish song, The Patriot Game, and the context of the lyric and the very word itself told me what it meant, a collaborator with an enemy of your country. In elementary school, I thought it was taken from the name of some kind of weak little, always frightened bird. It was only a few years ago, when I actually looked it up, that I discovered that the perfect word, quisling, comes from someone's name. Vidkun Quisling was a Norwegian politician who collaborated with the Nazis when they invaded his country in World War II. The most prominent early use of the word quisling in the United States was when Britain's Prime Minister Winston Churchill addressed a joint session of Congress after the United States joined the fighting in World War II. Churchill said, there burns the flame of anger against the brutal, corrupt invader, and still more fiercely burn the fires of hatred and contempt for the filthy quislings whom he has suborned. No one has been more suborned by Donald Trump after Donald Trump's invasion of the Republican Party than Lindsey Graham. To understand how low Lindsey Graham's rock bottom is tonight, remember where Lindsey Graham stood when he was running against Donald Trump for president in 2016.
He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. He doesn't represent my party.
And even after Lindsey Graham dropped out of the presidential campaign before a single vote was cast in a single primary, he still attacked Donald Trump, saying, if we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed and we will deserve it. He doesn't represent my party. If we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed and we will deserve it. Trump was an invader in every classic sense of the Republican Party. Lindsey Graham was right that Donald Trump did not represent what the Republican Party had publicly represented before the Trump campaign. But Donald Trump crushed every Republican in his way. And then there were no Republicans in his way, because the last ones standing in his way, Senator Rafael Cruz and Senator Lindsey Graham, lived in fear of Donald Trump's power over their voters in their states. Senators like Lindsey Graham knew that Donald Trump had the power to take their Senate seats away by backing a Republican candidate to run against them in their states. The big difference, an important difference, between Lindsey Graham and Norway's original Quisling is that Vidkun Quisling was a fascist long before the Nazis invaded his country. When Quisling was collaborating with the Nazis, he was a true believer. Would that Winston Churchill were still with us, so that we could prevail upon his wisdom to judge for us which is worse, Quisling the true believer, or Lindsey Graham the Quisling. In another speech in London during World War II, Churchill said Quisling's, quote, fawn upon the conqueror to collaborate in his designs and to enforce his rule upon their fellow countrymen while groveling low themselves. Lindsey Graham has been fawning upon the conqueror for over 5 years now. Lindsey Graham has been collaborating in his designs to the point that Lindsey Graham is now fighting a subpoena for his testimony to a grand jury in Atlanta about Donald Trump's attempts to overthrow the presidential election in Georgia. Lindsey Graham tried to enforce his rule on his fellow countrymen by trying to help Donald Trump get reelected, and then by trying to help Donald Trump overturn the results of the presidential election. This is what Churchill meant by Quisling's groveling low.
And I'll say this. If there's a prosecution of Donald Trump for mishandling classified information after the Clinton debacle, which you presided over and did a hell of a good job, there'll be riots in the streets.
There won't be. Lindsey Graham is lying. Lindsey Graham is lying about a false equivalence between Hillary Clinton's handling of classified information while she was in office as Secretary of State and Donald Trump's handling of classified information and other government records after he left office and took those records with him as a private citizen. But Lindsey Graham is also lying about Trump supporters, and he is insulting them. If Donald Trump is indicted, 74 million Trump supporters will do exactly what they did when Donald Trump lost the election. Nothing. The hundreds of them who might be inclined to riot in the streets are spread out throughout the 50 states. And it is possible that most of them have already been convicted of rioting for Donald Trump at the Capitol on January 6th. And the ringleaders of that riot on the Capitol are all in prison. There will not be rioting in the streets in this country of 330 million people if Donald Trump is charged with a crime. Not 1 million people have ever publicly gathered for Donald Trump anywhere for any reason. 74 million Trump voters are law-abiding people with no criminal records and no criminal intent who have never rioted for anything and never will. If you add up every rabid Trump supporter who has ever attended a Trump rally, it doesn't come close to the number of people who marched in Washington, D.C. alone against Donald Trump on the day after Donald Trump's inauguration. The largest protest in Washington, D.C. history was a protest against Donald Trump. On that same day, throughout the United States, the day after Donald Trump's inauguration, and throughout the world, the largest mass protest in the history of the human race occurred against Donald Trump. In every American city that had a protest against Donald Trump on that day after his inauguration, it was the largest protest in the history of that city. They will not be coming out into the streets for Donald Trump if he is indicted. There is a loaded phrase in the affidavit that an FBI agent submitted to a federal judge in Florida. to obtain a search warrant for Donald Trump's home. It's a phrase that could explain what Lindsey Graham is really personally worried about when he talks about, perhaps hopes for, rioting in the streets. And that phrase is criminal Confederates. On page 30 of the affidavit, the FBI agent writes, "I believe that sealing this document is necessary because the items and information to be seized are relevant to an ongoing investigation, and the FBI has not yet identified all potential criminal Confederates, nor located all evidence related to its investigation. Premature disclosure of the contents of this affidavit and related documents may have a significant and negative impact on the continuing investigation and may severely jeopardize its effectiveness by allowing criminal parties an opportunity to flee, destroy evidence stored electronically and otherwise, change patterns of behavior, and notify criminal Confederates." In one of his many trips to fawn upon Donald Trump at his Florida home, did Donald Trump ever show Lindsey Graham any documents that he took from the White House after he left the presidency? Was Lindsey Graham a criminal Confederate of Donald Trump's in trying to overturn the presidential election in Georgia? Is that why Lindsey Graham is the first senator in the history of the United States to predict riots in the streets if his friend is indicted? We don't know. The only thing we do know now, for sure, about Lindsey Graham is as long as he continues to live in the darkness of his own personal rock bottom, he will surely continue, as Churchill put it, to fawn upon his conqueror.